A Fox News alert just moments ago, Fox confirming through separate sources that a raid today in Somalia by U.S. Navy SEALs. It was a pre-dawn firefight, killing the head of the al-Qaeda-linked terror group al-Shabaab. Now, the group allegedly behind the deadly attack on the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, Kenya, that killed 67 people. Hundreds were injured just a couple of weeks ago. Joining us now, former CIA operative Mike Baker. Mike, how do you think this thing went down? Again, it was pre-dawn. What do you think happened?
Well, the group, al-Shabaab, has lost a lot of territory over the past year and a half, 2 years in Somalia, and they were pushed out of Mogadishu. And in part, that was one of the reasons why they claimed they attacked Westgate Mall in Nairobi, because of the involvement of the Kenyan troops. So they've been trying to hold on to some territory, some of it south of Mogadishu, and where this raid took place was right on the water. It was a coastal village about 100 miles south of Mogadishu, so tailor-made for the SEALs. The good thing is that we've been working al-Shabaab as a target for some time. I mean, obviously, well before the Westgate attack in Nairobi, we knew that they were a dangerous element, and we've been working on them. And so we had a fair amount of intelligence about where they had hunkered down at this point. So again, kudos obviously to the team, and a terrific get, frankly.
All right, Mike, stand by for just a moment, if you would. We have more information.
We want to go now to our Pentagon reporter, Jennifer Griffin. She has more. Jennifer, what can you tell us? What can you confirm for us?
Well, what we've just confirmed is that, in fact, there was a raid in Somalia in this town of Barawe early this morning. The target was the head of al-Shabaab, but he was killed in the attack. He was not nabbed. He was not seized. He was not taken alive. There was some misreporting about that earlier this evening. But we have confirmed with sources that a SEAL team was involved. The target was this head of al-Shabaab, which, of course, was responsible for the attack on the Westgate Mall in Kenya, in which at least 60 people were killed, and just that went on for days, of course, down in Kenya. So very interesting that the SEALs were involved there. There's been a lot of focus on Somalia, and many of the top leaders of al-Shabaab have been targeted. In fact, the attack on the Westgate Mall, al-Shabaab, when their spokesmen were putting out statements during the attack, they said it was in response for Kenyan authorities and the U.S. and others focusing and attacking al-Shabaab inside Somalia. So all of this, Somalia has been a festering sort of zone for al-Shabaab for a number of years, of course, and U.S. Special Forces have been operating in there. Special Operations Forces have been operating in there, targeting individuals when they can. But we can confirm now that early this morning in a pre-dawn raid, U.S. Navy SEALs targeted and killed the head of al-Shabaab in Somalia.
A festering zone indeed, Jennifer. So do you know if at this point you cut off the head, you kill the rest of the snake, or are they expecting reaction and retaliation for this
killing?
Well,
that's certainly what we've found in the past, Arthel, is, of course, killing the leadership is significant, but it has yet to really, it doesn't work that way in terms of cutting off the head. Unfortunately, there are people who usually step into the role, take over. It will have a disrupting effect on al-Shabaab and this al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia, but it's not. I think it would be much too premature to suggest that this assassination, this killing of the top leader, what it does is it sends a message. It sends a message to al-Shabaab. It sends a message to other al-Qaeda groups that if they're going to carry out the kind of attack that we saw at the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, that there will be a response, that U.S. Special Operations Forces and others will come after them, and no matter how long it takes.
And Jennifer, we know that this is just unfolding, so details are sketchy. Do we have any information in terms of how this raid went down, or how many Navy SEALs were involved?
No, we don't have those kind of details, but I can tell you, just based on the location in Somalia, this town of Barawe, it's a seaside town. This was a villa, we're told, where this leader was at the time, and Some of the details that were being reported by the New York Times earlier today suggested that the Navy SEALs went in using silencers and that then a gunfight erupted, and then there was an hour-long gunfight in this seaside town. What we would have expected is if SEALs are involved, obviously they're going to come from the sea, but it's not clear whether, most likely, if you were going to look at past, from past experience and past operations like this, they most likely would have somehow either roped in, landed from the air or by sea, and certainly done what they do best. We've seen it in previous operations, but there was a gunfight, we're told, and the leader of al-Shabaab was killed.
And Jennifer, before we let you go, do you have any official statements from there on your end there at the Pentagon?
We do not have any official statements from the Pentagon. We have confirmed it with military sources who are familiar with the operations that were taking place in that region. Adam Housley, my colleague, confirmed it with one of his sources, and I confirmed it. I have a second source, and so we know that we've learned that just early dawn this morning, the SEALs took out the head of al-Shabaab.
Very good. Senior National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin, thank you so much for that update. And we're going to bring Mike Baker back into the conversation.
Yeah, let's get back to Mike Baker, former CIA operative. So, Mike, seaside town, U.S. Navy SEALs, and it's pretty quick, within 2 weeks after the attack at the Westgate Mall, and they take out the leader of al-Shabaab. How important is this?
Well, it's very important, in part because of what Jennifer just said. It does send a message, and they do pay attention to this sort of thing. But the part of the problem has always been with any al-Qaeda element, whether it's al-Shabaab or any other, AQAP or whichever we're talking about, is that they don't seem to have much trouble filling the spots. They seem to have a bottomless well of disaffected potential recruits. Now, it is degrading in terms of their tactical ability, their knowledge, their experience, and so that's a good thing. I mean, the more people you take off at the top, less experience come in to fill up that spot, and that's good for us in the long run. But this is very important. It's again, I point to the fact that this didn't happen just overnight. This was the result of a lot of work that goes on, targeting these groups, over months and years, trying to understand who the leadership is, trying to understand where they are, and also the liaison service. Working with the Somalis, working with the Kenyans, whomever else we have on the ground who can provide important intelligence leading up to it to allow us to put together a game plan. And again, a seaside village, and you call them the SEALs. That's a terrific maritime operation for them.
So how do you think they found this guy? Talk to us about the intel and the surveillance that located the head of al-Shabaab. I mean, this is a huge get.
Right. Well, again, we monitor, these groups continuously. There's a lot of work that goes on that people just never see in terms of on-the-ground intel collection, technical collection. This is not just a case where we wait for something bad to happen and then we get in after them and try to figure out who's who. So this has been going on for some time. Once al-Shabaab was identified as the perps behind the Westgate Mall, then the wheels started in motion. And, you're working with the Kenyan service, in the military in a very heavy way, trying to pull information out of those that were captured on site. And then you're working your other sources in the area, including down there in Somalia and even as close in as that little village of Barawe. So it's a very labor-intensive effort. It's sort of like the takedown of bin Laden. Unfortunately, there was sort of this mindset that, it happened like that. It happened overnight. It's a lot of work that comes together and allows that actionable intelligence to get in the hands of the SEALs at the front end of that spear to then put together the game plan that allows them to do this operation.
And Mike, how risky is an operation like this?
Well, anytime you rock up on a hostile target, bad things can happen. So you try to try to minimize that. And if you're not doing your training, and the SEALs and all the other elements out there, including my old outfit, that's what you do in downtime. And you're training and you're waiting for this opportunity. And none of these guys expect to rock up on the target with perfect intelligence. It's just never going to happen. So there's always an element of unknown, and you anticipate, you expect, and yes, you try to minimize the risk. But if you wait for all the intelligence so that when you're standing around, you can say, yeah, we got everything we need, we've minimized the risk down to zero, and you never get off the X, then nothing but bad things happen.
Mike Baker, of course, we appreciate your perspective on this. Mike Baker, former CIA operative. And Mike, we'll check back in with you this hour should more developments occur. Thanks so much, Mike.
Huge breaking news story. Taking out the head of al-Shabaab in a pre-dawn raid by U.S. Navy SEALs in Somalia. Huge risks there, and the immediacy of this thing is truly amazing. Within 2 weeks of the attack on the Westgate Mall
in Nairobi,
and the U.S. Navy SEALs taking out the head of al-Shabaab, al-Qaeda-connected terrorist attack.
Right, which